Aranda on kind of what kick-started this run of Baylor winning, which seemed to be impossible, but it is now remarkable, a 6-game winning streak.
Dave, what was the impetus that got y'all to this point in terms of, you mentioned it, to turn it around like you did? I mean, what do you feel like was the biggest thing?
I think it's probably a year ago, this game. It was back in, November or December. I think it was then, and I think everyone knew we had a good team. I know that we can point to the 2 and 4. I think that's easy to do. But I think everybody felt like, we're being buried, but we're still alive. It's hard to breathe when they're putting dirt on you. You know what I mean? And so to get some oxygen and to breathe a little bit, I think you look at Devin Bobby and is a great example of it. So Devin has the opportunity to make picks, and he drops them, and now all of a sudden he's grabbing picks out of the air all over the place. And so that's just the power of belief and the power of being positive. It's cool to see.
By the way, Devin Bobby was our post-game show segment, and he was really good after the win against Kansas. And then Aranda and his knowledge and what he's built his resume on when it comes to defense. But yet again, Baylor initially looked like they were going to give up a bunch of yards and maybe a lot of points. Listen to what he was saying during the game, even when Baylor was having success when it comes to the scoreboard.
I don't know how much you care about yards, but defense obviously gave up some yards, but getting 3 turnovers, a 4th down stop, another stop that they didn't make the field goal on. How big was that for them to kind of maybe bend but don't break?
Yeah, it's really big. I think somewhere in there I was losing my mind on the sidelines, and I feel bad for our defensive coaches because they have to listen to me, but I was just saying, man, it's almost like we're destined to give up 30 points a game. I think we can play somewhat decently. And offensively, we score so fast. And, I get to the sidelines on defense, and everybody's smiling, and they're happy. And it's like, you shouldn't, effing be happy right now. You need to be effing pissed off. What? And it's like, this came up too in 2019 at LSU. This was the similar problem. And so you have to play your best up 20 points in the 3rd quarter. And so it just goes against basically human nature to do that. And we've failed pretty strong in that area. You look at all these games that we haven't closed out. And so the 4th down stop was a little bit of a win. So we'll take it.
Yeah, Kansas' first drive went down, missed a field goal. Second drive went down, scored. Then they had another field goal, but they were moving it up. They had over 400 yards, but it was a lot of hidden stuff along the way.
Yeah, Kansas was super hot coming in, and Baylor just smacked them around throughout the majority of that game. Kansas did move the ball, like you said, early on, had some opportunities, but missed that field goal, and they didn't have a whole lot to really keep up with the Bears throughout most of that game. Jalen Daniels turns the ball over, and it really seemed like they pretty easily spotted kind of what KU was looking to do and had great game prep throughout the week, weren't caught off guard by anything, and if anything, kind of saw through what Jeff Grimes was trying to do. As they mentioned in the postgame, it was a certain look that they said is like, look to see if, I don't know, it was something about, because I saw it in passing, it was something about just the wide receivers, but they had kind of decoded some of what they were trying to do on offense, and that helped them limit what KU was hoping to do. So I was really impressed. I was really caught off guard by how well they played, because I don't know, probably didn't give them the benefit of the doubt that I give everybody else because I'm too close to it. So I typically go away the opposite direction rather than leaning into that. I go the opposite, and that was not the right decision here because we've seen how well they played. They deserve the respect to think that they'd be able to beat a team that's in the same kind of ranking as them, the same sort of tier as them, and to be at home, even though there wasn't a great crowd. I mean, that's kind of the norm, and you're sort of used to not always having it be like jam-packed and crazy, so I don't think that affected them all that much, and should have given them more benefit of the doubt, but didn't, and was pleasantly happy to be wrong for their sake because it turned out to be a great win.
It was. The defense did make plays. They had a couple of turnovers, as you mentioned. Daniels was picked, Devin Bobby a couple of times, and they win the game. Now, Dave Aranda's job was on the line even at the end of last year before the season ended. Mack Rhoades took holy hell, scorched earth, because he did not fire Dave Aranda. Not everybody. There's some that wanted to see how it worked out. Then 2-4. I mean, I've read the comments. I wondered whether or not Aranda would survive. My minimum was you better go 7-5 or better. Well, they went 8-4. And they are on a roll. And I'm telling you, some of you, and you know who you are, and I'm not saying you were wrong, felt like this should have been a coaching change. And now, a year later, what has Dave Aranda learned about his growth as a head coach?
Dave, you mentioned that sometimes it's more of an art than a science. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I take you as more of a scientist than an artist. Mm-hmm. How much growth have you made as a head coach? Mm-hmm. I mean, over the course of this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a couple cycles of all of that. I think the growth has been exhausting, But I think it's important because I think the game is changing, I think if you just look at the schematics, just what offensively we saw today from Kansas, there was never an offense. We just saw a bunch of unbalanced, trick plays, motions, all these other things. There wasn't one team in 2019 that did that. And so the game is completely different now, too, But then I think with whether it's what you got to do for recruiting, what you've got to do, I guess, to be cool, what you've got to do to win in a really, really competitive environment takes change, and it takes you looking in the mirror.
Mack Rhoades, I remember asking him when he decided he was going to keep Dave Aranda, what happens if it doesn't work out? And he kind of had a smart-ass remark, which I thought showed it won't be the first time, right? It won't be the first time. And then they start 2-4. And what a really, from the hot seat, hell, he was inside of an oven, one of those ovens you see at a great Italian restaurant that goes inside the stone. Guys, what he's done, what this team has done, we've discussed it a little bit, but we didn't kind of backed off to see how it would end. Whatever they do in the bowl game, the amount of players they have coming back, where they are now with their NIL, where they are with the momentum, they got to protect some players, they got to protect some coaches, but man, night and day from this time a year ago.
Well, I always had the feeling that because I do think that Dave Aranda is one of those guys who hasn't even realized his full potential yet, and he's got all of that one of the things that Mack Rhoades had to be telling himself is, okay, I'm going to fire this guy because everybody tells me to, even though I believe in him, and I think we can do it right if we can just get together on what did we do wrong, and we can all agree on that and move forward, which they did. The biggest thing I just always felt was Dave Aranda is going to get fired at Baylor after a couple of mediocre to bad years, and then he's going to kick around for a little bit, figure it out, and then one day we're going to watch him hoisting a trophy for another team because he did figure it out. And, kudos to Mack Rhoades for sticking with it, and kudos to Dave Aranda for at 2-4, realizing what was wrong with the team that they believed to be pretty good, and turning the light on where it needed to be turned on.
Yeah, I mean, I give Dave Aranda a lot of credit for being adaptable. I mean, he had to be, though. Like, that's the thing. I give Mack Rhoades credit, but also at the same time, like, he needed it to work out. So, he's the one that put that big contract with the big buyout in front of Dave Aranda back after 2021. And so both sides needed to work out. And I don't know how much of a choice you had to stick with it or not. Like, you had to let it play out and see how it went. And who knows, had they won a couple less games, what that would have looked like on Mack Rhoades' desk. But, yeah, there was pressure building there earlier in the year. I thought it was silly to be calling for his job at 2-4, but that was the direction that they were heading, and certainly you were setting yourself up for that conversation. I just thought it was kind of moronic to do, like, no, we got to do it like right now. It's like, what good would that do? It would do absolutely no good to jump out 6 weeks into the season and start a head coaching search. So I just felt like that was overreactionary. I'm glad, though, that we didn't have to see that be the trend for the last 8 weeks of the season, where that was what all the talk was. Instead, that type of talk got flipped on its head as they just reeled off win after win after win to the point of like, oh, damn, he's not only going to be back, like they're setting up for maybe a pretty great run. And winning 6 straight to close it out, have a possibility at 7, have a possibility at 9 wins. 8-5 would be a good mark. 9-4 would be tremendous. But either way, it's a huge bounce back, and there is a lot of reason to believe that next year could be great. Now, at the same time, there's a lot of transfer portal between now and then. There's a lot of NIL between now and then. There's a lot of coaching changes between now and then. So it's hard to say what exactly this team's going to look like in August. I mean, no matter how good and cheery and rosy and everything does seem to be, but still, it does seem like it's in a really good spot with a lot of guys who like being here and fit the Dave Aranda mold. And I think Dave Aranda fits Baylor really well. And I think that for his shortcomings, the offense isn't sexy enough. Well, it is now. It's like the best offense in America over the last 6 weeks. Legitimately the best offense in America. So you've got all your flash and dash. He's not going to be like the king of style. He never will be. But all of the other things are falling into place, and I think he's got a good grasp on their identity now and his identity and the program and what it needs to be and what it needs to look like and who they need to have in it. And so I'm excited to see what they're able to do with it, because unlike in 2021 when they just dropped the ball and didn't really react to their success, they know better now.
Yep.
And they will react to the success, and I expect them to carry that momentum into National Signing Day in a couple of days, and I expect them to carry that throughout the offseason, because now the We Pay Players thing really set them up for some jokes this time of year if they wouldn't have followed through on that. And early on in the season, that looked like it was going to be a big joke of We Pay Players. Instead, it's something you throw back out there this time of year and you go, no, yeah, reminder, we pay players. Oh, yeah, and we also went 8-4. We're going to go to a pretty good bowl game as well. And, there's the part about if you just defend that Hail Mary, you're in the Big 12 championship game. I mean, so I'm not going to what if it to death, but, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about right now and the trajectory of the program and the direction under Dave Aranda, which is not something we could have said a couple months ago.
Yeah, he took his staff and also the coverage of his team, and it wasn't always popular. I saw Ashley Hodge write about this earlier over the weekend. He basically went underground. The access to him is what some coaches, you get them on Monday, and they may do a coaches show somewhere at a local business later in the week. Not a lot of interviews, not on this show one time during season. Coaches aren't available. Whatever we want, that doesn't matter. Whatever he could do to turn that table, turn that tide, he did, plus what Mack Rhodes and the rest of the department gave what he needed. And now they get a little bit of a break, and like you said, in a couple of days, they're going to have, for Baylor, a very nice signing class.
We'll see if there's any surprises, but, they may have some up their sleeve as well. So I know they had a couple guys that were, kind of teetering, like Oregon was playing heavy on Caleb Burns and guys like that. So we'll see how they close. But, it's going to be a fun offseason based on what we know right now, and it could have been the complete opposite if things had held course following the Iowa State game.